Let's start with a huge question. Are you really in control of your own life? I mean, really? Or is something else pulling the strings? It's one of the biggest questions out there. And today, we're digging into a powerful, and for a lot of people, a pretty unsettling answer.
Think about the choice you just made to watch this. Did that decision just, freely bubble up from the core of who you are? Or was it actually the unavoidable endpoint of a million different causes stretching all the way back way before you were even born? This right here is that classic dilemma, free will versus determinism.
And that's where this guy, the 16th century theologian John Calvin, walks onto the stage. See, he wasn't afraid to take that question and just run with it, all the way to the end. And what he built was this incredibly detailed theological system that pretty much challenges everything we think we know about freedom, responsibility, and even God himself.
Now, to even begin to get inside Calvin's world, you have to start with his absolute foundational idea, God's total, complete, and very hands-on control over, well, everything. He called it providence. The key word here is particular providence. For Calvin, it's not like God just wound up the universe like some giant clock and then sat back to watch it tick. No. He is actively, directly involved, moment by moment, in every single thing. He doesn't just know what's going to happen. Calvin said he governs it with his hands. So, why would you believe this? Well, for Calvin, the alternative, a world just run by random chance, by pure luck and meaningful fortune, was, and this is his phrase, unbearable and incoherent. So in his mind, providence was actually a huge comfort. It means that even when things look like total chaos, there's a divine plan. Everything, in the end, has a purpose. Calvin put it this way: God is the keeper of the keys, and he governs all events. He's not a spectator, he is in charge. But if that's true, what does that possibly mean for us?
And this is where we hit the big complication. Because if God is in complete control, how can we possibly be held responsible for our actions? Especially, our bad ones. This is where Calvin's ideas about humanity get really, really important.
It's the obvious next question, right? If God is running the whole show, does that mean we're all off the hook? Calvin's answer to that is a hard no. And his whole argument is built on what he believed happened to human nature after the fall.
See, according to Calvin, original sin wasn't just some small oopsie. It was a total system failure, a catastrophic corruption of our entire being. Our minds? Blinded. Our hearts? Depraved. And the really crucial part, our will? It's not free to just choose good anymore. It is bound. It is chained to its own wicked desires.
So, to solve this puzzle, Calvin makes this incredibly important distinction between what he calls compulsion and necessity. Okay, so compulsion is being forced to do something by an outside power, like a gun to your head. That, he says, would remove responsibility. But necessity? That's different. That's just acting from your own internal nature.
And here's the absolute kicker. Calvin argues that just as God is necessarily good, because that's just his nature, right? Fallen humans are necessarily sinful because that is our nature. We aren't being forced to sin from the outside. We sin willingly because that's what our own corrupted hearts want to do. And for Calvin, that makes us 100% responsible.
Okay, but if you follow that logic, it leads us to an even darker, more difficult place. A place that gets to the absolute core of what makes Calvin's whole system so tough to swallow: the problem of evil.
You can't avoid this question. If God governs all events and evil things happen, does that mean God actively wills them to happen? Now, a lot of theologians tried to soften this, saying God just permits evil to happen. Calvin, he thought that was a total cop-out.
His answer is a direct and, frankly, a shocking yes. For Calvin, saying God merely permits something implies that it could happen without God's active will. And in his universe of total, absolute control, that's just impossible. So the only conclusion is that God determines all actions, the good ones and the bad ones.
Think about that. In this worldview, there are no accidents. Calvin was so committed to God's absolute power that he was willing to risk making God look like the author of evil rather than admit that God's power has any limits at all. So how on earth does he resolve this? The solution, the key that unlocks this entire massive puzzle, is this brilliant and kind of mind-bending concept we can call a universe of nested intentions, or maybe layered agency.
The basic idea is this.
A single event can be the action of multiple people or agents, all at the same time. And what makes an action good or evil isn't just the action itself, it's the intention of the person doing it.
Let's use the story of Job from the Bible to see how this plays out. You've got one single event, the suffering of Job. But look, there are 3 different agents at work here. First, the Chaldeans, who steal his stuff. They act out of greed. That's an evil intention. Then you have Satan, who acts to drive Job to curse God. Also, clearly an evil intention. But then you have God, and his intention is to test his servant's faith, which is a righteous intention. Same event, 3 different agents, 3 totally different moral qualities.
So let's just break that down one more time. 1. You have multiple agents acting in the same event. 2. Each one has their own unique goal. 3. It's that goal, that intention, that decides if the act is good or evil for that agent. And 4. The result is that humans, like the Chaldeans and Satan, are judged for their evil intentions, while God remains perfectly righteous because his ultimate purpose is good.
And that, right there, is the linchpin of his whole system. This is how he does it. Humans are genuinely responsible for their own evil intentions and the actions that come from them. And, at the exact same time, God stays completely in charge, weaving even those evil acts into his own ultimately good and righteous plan.
It's a lot, I know. It's an intricate, powerful, and, let's be honest, a deeply challenging way to look at the world, which brings us to one last big thought.
If Calvin is right, if behind every headline, every personal tragedy, every single triumph, there's a hidden divine purpose that we just can't see, what does that mean for how we live? It means a universe where nothing is random, where everything is under control. What you do with an idea like that? Well, I guess that's up to you.